My daughter-in-law broke all my birthday presents while the family laughed. Then my husband took off his wedding ring and said 4 words that changed our family forever. The sound of glass shattering against the custom hardwood floor was the first thing that paralyzed me. Not the scream, not my son's nervous laughter. It was that dry, definitive snap of something valuable breaking forever. Victoria was holding what was left of my mother's antique pocket watch. The hands hung crooked. The shattered crystal gleamed between her fingers like frozen tears. She looked me right in the eyes as she dropped the remains to the floor. Without blinking, without apologizing, I had just turned 67 years old, and my own family was destroying every single gift I had received that afternoon, one by one, as if it were a game. The living room smelled of fresh French roast coffee and the roses that Arthur had cut from the garden that morning. On the table, there were still leftovers of the red velvet cake that Emily had baked. Blown-out candles, crumpled napkins. Everything seemed normal until 5 minutes prior, when Victoria stood up from the couch with that smile I already knew entirely too well. "Mother-in-law," she said with that fake sweetness that made my skin crawl, "let me help you organize these gifts. There is so much clutter in here." Before I could answer, she already had her hands on the scrapbooking album my friend Betty had been putting together for 6 months. Photographs of my entire life glued by hand, with notes written in gold ink. Our wedding, the kids when they were little, Christmases up in the Smoky Mountains, summers at Cape Cod. She opened it like someone flipping through a boring takeout menu. "Old photos? Seriously, Mary?" Her voice went up a pitch, dramatic, as if she were performing for an audience. "Nobody uses this anymore. Everything is in the cloud now, on your smartphone. This just takes up space." She ripped out the first page. I heard the thick paper tear. Benjamin, my eldest son, let out an uncomfortable laugh from his armchair. He did not defend me. He just ran his hand through his hair and looked away, like a little boy caught between 2 fighting adults. "Victoria, please." My voice sounded weaker than I wanted. "Betty made that album for me. It took her months." "Betty? That nosy neighbor who has nothing better to do?" Victoria ripped out another page, and another. The photos fell like dead leaves. "Oh, mother-in-law, you really need to get with the times and stop living in the past." Emily, my daughter, half stood up from her chair. "Mom?" But Victoria had already grabbed the handmade patchwork quilt my cousin sent me from the Blue Ridge Mountains. Ivory cotton with tiny, hand-stitched floral patterns. Every stitch had taken hours. Victoria held it out like it was an old dish rag. "This? Some hillbilly blanket?" She dropped it to the floor. She stepped on it. Oops, it slipped. Jack, my youngest son, had his eyes wide open. He tried to say something, but his girlfriend Sarah squeezed his hand, whispering, "Do not get involved." Victoria kept going. She threw the blown glass ornaments Emily brought me from Asheville right against the wall. "The hand-knit wool scarf my dear friend Nancy made me. This is itchy. Who even wears wool these days? The monogrammed linen napkins. What a waste of time." And then she picked up my mother's watch. That watch had survived 40 years after her passing. I had carried it through every move. I cleaned it every month. I wound it every Sunday, like a sacred ritual. It was the only thing I had left of her besides her name. This old piece of junk. Victoria shook it near her ear. "It does not even work right. It makes a weird noise. Do not touch it." This time my voice did come out firm. "Victoria, I am asking you. That watch belonged to my mom." "Belonged?" She smiled. "Perfect, because you do not need it anymore. The dead do not come back, Mary, and you old folks cling to trash as if it were gold." She dropped it. The glass exploded. The inner mechanism spilled out like guts. Tiny gold gears rolled under the console table. Benjamin laughed. A nervous, cowardly laugh, but a laugh nonetheless. And that laugh was worse than the broken watch. I felt like something inside of me was breaking too. That was when Arthur stood up from his chair. My 70-year-old husband, the man who had built an entire life by my side, the man who had stayed quiet through this whole spectacle, finally got to his feet. His knees popped. He walked slowly toward the center of the living room, where the pieces of my life were scattered like garbage. He stopped right in front of Victoria, and without saying a word, he took off his wedding ring. The silence was absolute. Even the kids stopped running around out in the backyard. Arthur looked at the ring in his palm. That simple gold band he had not taken off in 45 years. He looked at it as if it were his first time seeing it. Then he looked up at Benjamin. "I do not recognize this family." Words. Just a few words that dropped like heavy stones in still water. Victoria turned pale. Benjamin opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Emily covered her face with her hands. Jack stood up abruptly, confused. But Arthur was not finished. "If you want to know what my husband did with that ring, why those words changed everything, and how a birthday afternoon became the beginning of the end for a family, stay with me through this story, because what happened after that moment, nobody in my family saw coming, not even me." Please subscribe to the channel to keep listening to real stories like this one, because sometimes the most painful confessions are also the ones that most desperately need to be told. But before I tell you what Arthur did with that ring, you need to understand how we got there, how a family that built everything from scratch ended up destroying itself on a Sunday afternoon, and how I, Mary Miller, went from being the respected matriarch to the burden everyone wanted to make disappear. Because this humiliation did not start that day. It started much earlier, and I had been entirely too blind to see it coming. Let me take you 8 years back, to a time when my house was still mine, when my family still looked me in the eyes when they spoke to me, when Benjamin still called me Mom instead of avoiding my name altogether. Arthur and I bought this plot of land in 1978 with our wedding savings and a bank loan that took us 10 years to pay off. It was a vacant lot on the outskirts of Grand Rapids, Michigan, where only weeds grew and stray cats sunbathed on the rocks. People told us we were crazy. A furniture factory? Out there? There is absolutely nothing out there. But we saw what others could not see. Arthur was a master carpenter. His hands were rough from sanding so much wood. His fingernails always had splinters buried in them that I would pull out every night with a sterilized needle and some rubbing alcohol. He made chairs, dining tables, armoires, pieces that lasted for generations because he did not believe in cutting corners. The wood talks, he would tell me while running his fingers over a solid oak plank. You just have to listen to it. I kept the books. I learned how to read contracts, how to negotiate with suppliers, how to collect payments without apologizing. We started with 3 employees in a tin roof workshop where the heat was unbearable in July and the cold chilled you to the bone in January. I would brew coffee in a percolator on a little gas stove and serve the cinnamon rolls I bought from Joe's Bakery every morning. That is how we built Miller Furniture, order by order, client by client. Our children grew up surrounded by wood shavings and the smell of varnish. Benjamin, our oldest, was always the most serious. Ever since he was a little boy, he carried a notebook where he jotted down numbers and sketched blueprints. By 15, he was already helping his dad with designs. Emily inherited my personality. Decisive, with a firm voice, but with a bleeding heart for everyone. She became a certified public accountant to help us expand. And Jack, my baby, the sensitive one, went to a big state university in the Midwest to study industrial design because he wanted to modernize the business without losing its soul. By the time Benjamin turned 34, he was running 80% of the daily operations. Arthur and I were ready to take a step back. Not retire, we would never retire, but we were ready to loosen the reins. We trusted him. He was meticulous, responsible, a little rough when dealing with people, but brilliant with numbers. Then he met Victoria. It was at the International Contemporary Furniture Fair in New York. Benjamin came home talking about this incredible woman. Mom, she is smart, modern, she really knows business. Within 2 weeks, he brought her over to meet us. I remember that day perfectly. Victoria showed up wearing a wine-colored tailored suit, high heels that clicked against the floor like warning shots, and designer sunglasses she did not take off until we were inside. She was pretty, I could not deny that. Straight shoulder-length hair, flawless makeup, fingernails painted as red as fresh blood, but there was something in her eyes, a calculating coldness behind every smile. Mrs. Miller, she said, extending a perfectly manicured hand. Benjamin has told me so much about you two, about everything you built. It must be wonderful to have a legacy like this. The word legacy gave me goosebumps, almost as if we were already dead and she was appraising the inheritance. Arthur, always the diplomat, welcomed her with coffee and a slice of cake. Victoria rejected both. "I do not eat refined carbs, thank you. Do you happen to have any green tea?" We did not. The first 6 months were subtle. Victoria would come over for Sunday dinner, always dropping some comment wrapped in fake concern. "Are you guys still using that old tablecloth? Oh, how nostalgic. Although it is looking a little faded, right? Oh, Benjamin told me you still do your bookkeeping in actual ledgers. How quaint. Have you not thought about going digital?" Every visit was an evaluation disguised as courtesy. They got married a year later in a very small ceremony. Victoria did not want a big wedding. "Traditions are for people with no vision for the future," she said. I bit my tongue and smiled for the photos. The real Victoria came out when they moved into the house we gifted them. A beautiful property 10 minutes from ours, with 3 bedrooms and a backyard I personally helped landscape. After 2 months, Victoria was already remodeling everything. "It is just that your style is very traditional, mother-in-law. I need minimalist, functional spaces." She threw out the custom furniture Arthur had built for them, hauled it out to the curb like trash. Hand-carved solid oak chairs, a dining table that took him 3 months to finish, replaced entirely with modern, mass-produced pieces bought online. Shiny plastic and cold metal. Arthur did not say a word. But that night I found him in his workshop, running his hand over a block of wood, his eyes welling with tears. Then Victoria started in on the company. "Benjamin, honey, your dad is getting too old to be making the major decisions. You really need to start taking absolute control." I heard her say it during a family dinner. Her voice was low, but loud enough for everyone to catch it. "Besides, your parents have worked hard enough. They deserve to rest. Let the younger generation take this to the next level." "My dad is not old," Benjamin replied, but his voice lacked conviction. "Of course not, sweetheart. I am just saying you guys have fresh, new ideas, and the company needs to evolve, or it will die. Die." The word just floated there like toxic smoke. Victoria's visits to the factory became more frequent. Suddenly, she was the one talking to suppliers, suggesting changes to the designs, questioning every single decision Arthur made, always with that smile, always with that "I am just trying to help" attitude. One day, I dropped by the main office, unannounced, and found my desk completely empty. The photos of my kids, my potted plants, the vintage needlepoint landscape that had been with me since the beginning, all packed into a cardboard box. "Oh, mother-in-law, I am so sorry," Victoria said as she walked out of what used to be my office. "We are just reorganizing the floor plan, making things more efficient, you know? And we figured you did not really need a dedicated desk here anymore. After all, you hardly ever come in." I hardly ever came in because every time I did, they made me feel like an intruder in the very place I helped build. That night, I told Arthur, "That woman is pushing us out of our own company." He sighed, looking exhausted. "Give her time. She is just trying to find her place." But I knew the truth. Victoria was not trying to find her place. She was taking ours. And the worst part of all was that Benjamin did not see a thing. Or even worse, he did see it, but he preferred to keep his eyes shut. Because by the time I realized what was truly happening, Victoria had already planted enough toxic seeds that my own family was starting to look at me as the problem. Not her, me. 6 months before my 67th birthday, Victoria organized what she called an important family dinner. Not at our house, not at hers. At an expensive steakhouse in downtown Grand Rapids. The kind of place with starched white tablecloths and waiters who look at you like they are evaluating how much cash you have in your wallet. "It is a special surprise," Benjamin had said over the phone. His voice sounded strange, rehearsed. "Mom, please dress nicely. It is important. I thought they were going to announce a pregnancy." How stupid I was. I put on my champagne-colored silk blouse, the one Arthur bought me for our 40th anniversary. I wore that peach lipstick he always says makes me look radiant. I even wore my mother's pearl earrings. Arthur wore his good gray suit and splashed on that cologne that smells like cedar and spices. We arrived at the restaurant actually believing we were going to celebrate something beautiful. Emily and Jack were already there. Jack was with Sarah, his girlfriend of 2 years, a sweet girl studying veterinary medicine. Emily came alone, because she had just broken up with her boyfriend. She looked pale, like she had not been sleeping well. She squeezed my hand when we sat down. "Do you know what this is about?" I whispered to her. She shook her head, but her eyes told a different story. She knew something, and she did not like it. Victoria arrived 15 minutes late. She always did, as if everyone else's time was worthless. She wore a tight black dress and those high heels that made her taller than Benjamin. He walked in right behind her like an obedient lapdog, carrying a leather briefcase I had never seen before. A briefcase for a family dinner. That should have been my first red flag. Family, Victoria announced as soon as she sat down, without even giving us a proper greeting. Her smile was as bright and sharp as a new knife. "Thank you for coming. I know everyone is busy, but Benjamin and I wanted to share something very important with you." Benjamin opened his briefcase. He pulled out documents, charts, financial projections printed on glossy paper. My stomach tied into knots. "Mom, Dad," Benjamin started, refusing to meet my eyes. "You guys have worked your whole lives. You have given everything for this family, for the company. And Victoria and I have been thinking a lot about your future, about your well-being. Well-being." The word sounded entirely hollow coming from his mouth. "The house you live in is massive," Victoria continued, taking the reins as if Benjamin were just her spokesperson. 4 bedrooms, a huge 3,000-square-foot backyard, constant maintenance. For 2 people living alone, it is way too much. Do you not get exhausted with so much empty space? She did not wait for my answer. "We have found a gorgeous condo in a much more central neighborhood. Modern, with 24-hour security. No stairs, no yard to maintain. Absolutely perfect for your age." Your age. Like being 67 years old made me an invalid. "Wait a minute," I said, feeling the blood rush to my cheeks. "A condo? What on earth are you talking about?" Victoria slid one of the documents toward me. It was an appraisal. Of my house? With an estimated value of $1.2 million. "If you sell the house," Victoria spoke slowly, like she was explaining basic math to a toddler, "you can buy the condo in cash for $500,000. That leaves you with $700,000 in pure profit to invest." "Invest?" Arthur asked. His voice sounded dangerously calm. "In the company," Benjamin replied, finally looking at his father. "The industry is changing, Dad. We need to modernize the equipment, launch a massive online store, hire fresh designers. That capital injection would make us market leaders. And you guys would still be partners, obviously. You would still make your money, just having it work for the family." I looked at Emily. She sat perfectly still, her knuckles white from gripping the linen napkin on her lap. "Did you know about this?" I asked her. "They brought it up to me 2 days ago," she whispered. "I told them they needed to talk to you directly." "Jack, what about you?" My youngest son shook his head, looking furious. "I did not know a thing, and I think this is absolute insanity." "It is not insanity," Victoria cut in, her voice rising a pitch. "It is logic. It is what any modern American family would do. But of course, you Millers are so attached to the old ways, to traditions that do not serve anyone anymore, to houses full of memories that just anchor you to the past." A thick silence fell over the table. The waiter stepped up to take our order. Nobody had even touched the menus. Victoria ordered for the whole table without asking. "Bring us the shrimp cocktail appetizer to share, and we will take a bottle of wine, the reserve." Like it was her money, like it was her family. When the waiter walked away, I finally spoke. My voice was shaking, but it came out. "We are not selling our house." "Mom, at least think about it," Benjamin started. "There is nothing to think about. Your father and I built that house with our own 2 hands. You were born there. Your brother and sister grew up there. Your grandfather passed away in that living room, Benjamin. Your grandmother watered those rose bushes that still bloom every spring. And you want us to sell it to buy machinery? To secure the future of the company," Victoria corrected. "But sure, if you prefer to be selfish and cling to old walls while the business you built goes under, that is your choice." Selfish. She called me selfish. "Victoria." Arthur's voice was pure ice. "Watch your mouth." "Or what, father-in-law?" She leaned forward, her eyes gleaming with something dark. Are you going to fire me? Me, the wife of your heir? The one who is trying to save your company while you two live in complete denial? Victoria, that is enough, Benjamin said, but he had no backbone, no conviction. She ignored her husband and looked right at me. You and Arthur have worked enough. Let us fix what you could not. Sell the house. Move into something more appropriate for your age. And stop being in the way. Being in the way. That phrase hit me in the chest like a brick. Emily stood up abruptly. This is over. Mom, Dad, let us go. But I could not move. I was staring at Benjamin, waiting for him to say something, to defend his mother, to tell his wife she had crossed a massive line. Benjamin looked down at the table. He gathered his papers. He said absolutely nothing. And in that silence, I realized something terrible. My son had already made his choice. Arthur took my hand. We stood up together. Jack and Emily followed us. We walked out of the restaurant while the other diners stared at us in curiosity. Out in the parking lot, with the cold March air burning my lungs, I finally cried. How dare she? I whispered into Arthur's chest. How dare she call me selfish? Tell me I am in the way. Arthur did not answer right away. He just held me, but when I looked up into his eyes, I saw something that terrified me. Doubt. Arthur, it is a lot of money, Mary, he finally said. And the company really does need capital. My breath caught in my throat. Are you actually considering it? Are you truly thinking about selling our home? I am just saying maybe. Maybe we should think about it. Not for Victoria. For the future of our kids. I dropped his hand. And in that moment, standing under the amber lights of the steakhouse parking lot, I understood that the battle ahead was not just going to be against Victoria, it was going to be against my entire family, even against the man who promised to always be by my side. The weeks after that dinner were bizarre. It felt like someone had shifted all the furniture in my life 3 inches to the left. Everything looked the same, but nothing fit right anymore. Benjamin stopped answering my calls. When he finally did pick up, he sounded rushed and distant. Mom, I am heading into a meeting. I will call you later. He never used to do that. Our Sunday family dinners, that sacred 40-year tradition, started happening less and less. We just have other commitments, Benjamin would say. Victoria's family exists too, you know. One Sunday, a photo popped up on Facebook. The whole family gathered at Victoria's house. Benjamin, Emily, Jack, Sarah. Even Emily's kids were there, my grandchildren, the 6-year-old twins I used to babysit every Thursday. In the photo, everyone was smiling around a table loaded with a huge brunch spread. Nobody had invited me. I called Emily. She picked up on the 6th ring. Why did nobody tell me about the get-together? Silence. Uncomfortable breathing. Mom, it was super last minute. Victoria threw a brunch together and you all just forgot to dial my number? Do not get mad. It is just. Victoria said you would probably be exhausted. That it was better to just let you rest. Let me rest. Like I was some fragile old lady about to shatter. Emily, I was not exhausted. I was right here, waiting for you all. I smoked a brisket. Your dad was grilling out back. I am so sorry, Mom. Truly. Her voice cracked a little. I have to let you go. The kids are making a huge mess. She hung up before I could say another word. I stood there with my phone in my hand, staring at that picture. Victoria was front and center, playing the proud hostess. Her arm wrapped around Benjamin, her flawless smile, and I was completely invisible. Things got worse when I tried to drop by the factory on a Tuesday morning. I had not visited in a week because Arthur had an appointment with the cardiologist, and I went with him. But that morning I wanted to check on the new orders, chat with Mr. Davis, the floor manager, see how things were moving. The new receptionist, a young girl I did not recognize, stopped me in the lobby. Good morning. Do you have an appointment? I laughed. I thought it was a joke. I am Mary Miller. This is my company. Yes, ma'am. I know. The girl did not smile. But the new corporate policies state that all visitors need a scheduled appointment, including the partners. Visitor? Me? Who put that policy in place? Mrs. Victoria. She says it is for better workflow organization. Would you like me to schedule something for you next week? Next week. To visit the place I helped build brick by brick. I walked right past her anyway. The girl followed me nervously, stammering, "Ma'am, please, I cannot let you back there unannounced." I found Victoria in my old office. She was sitting in my ergonomic chair, using my desk, with her things scattered everywhere. Laptops, empty Starbucks cups, a fake potted plant right where I used to keep my framed wedding photo. "Mother-in-law, what a surprise." She did not stand up. "Did something happen? Are you feeling okay?" "I came to work," I said, trying to keep my cool. "Since when do I need an appointment to walk into my own company?" "It is not your company, Mary. It is the family business. And in professional family businesses, everyone follows corporate protocol." She leaned back in the chair, marking her territory. "Besides, you do not hold an operational role here anymore. Benjamin and I discussed it. It is much better if you just enjoy your retirement." "I am not retired. You should be." Her smile was ice covered in sugar. "People your age need rest, not stress. Look at Arthur with his heart condition. Do you want him to have a heart attack because he is stressing over company logistics?" She used my husband's health as a weapon. "Get out, Victoria." "Excuse me?" I said, "Get up out of my chair and get out of my office." Victoria stood up slowly. She walked over to me. She smelled like expensive perfume and premature victory. "This is not your office anymore, mother-in-law. It is not your chair, and pretty soon it will not be your company either. Because the harder you cling to things that do not belong to you anymore, the faster you are going to lose everything." She strutted out, leaving me standing there like a trespasser in my own space. But the absolute worst thing, the thing that truly broke me, happened on a Thursday afternoon. I babysat Emily's twins every Thursday. It was our ritual. I would pick them up from elementary school, make them hot cocoa with marshmallows. We would bake chocolate chip cookies, and they would play in the backyard. Leo and Maya, 6 years old, my absolute treasures. That Thursday, I arrived at the pickup line just like always. When they saw me, Leo took a step back. "Grandma, Mommy said we cannot go to your house anymore," he said in a shaky little voice. "What? Why?" Maya was looking at me with these huge, terrified eyes. "Because Aunt Victoria says you are sick, that you say weird things, that sometimes you forget where you are." The air left my lungs. "What? I am not sick. Who told you that?" "Aunt Victoria," Leo repeated. "She says that when grandparents get really old, their brains get sick, that we should not listen to you when you say things because you might just be confused." Victoria had told my grandchildren I was losing my mind. Emily came sprinting up to the gate. She looked devastated. "Mom, I am so sorry. I did not tell them that." "It was Victoria. She talked to them when she watched them this weekend." "And you did not say anything? You did not stop her?" "I tried, but Benjamin. He says Victoria is just being cautious, that you have been acting a little strange lately, that maybe you do need to see a doctor." "I have been acting strange? Me?" The twins were looking at me in fear, like I was some dangerous stranger. "Kids, your grandma is perfectly fine," I told them, dropping to my knees. "I love you both so much." "Nothing they told you is true." But Leo hid behind his mother's leg, and Maya started to cry. Emily hurried them away, apologizing to me with her eyes. I stood there outside the school, watching them walk away. My grandchildren, my babies, were now terrified of me. Victoria was erasing me, systematically and methodically. She took my office, she took my family dinners, she took my role in the business, and now she was taking my grandchildren's love. That night, I told Arthur everything. I expected fury. I expected him to say, "That is enough. We are shutting this down right now." Instead, he let out a tired sigh. "Maybe Victoria has a point about some things," he said without looking at me. "Maybe we really should fully step down. Let the younger folks run the show. Less stress on us. Are you listening to yourself? Are you hearing what I am telling you?" "Yes, Mary, I hear you. But I am also hearing that you are fighting battles we probably do not need to fight anymore." I slept in the guest bedroom that night. And for the first time in 45 years of marriage, I felt completely and utterly alone. Victoria had achieved the impossible. She had turned my own family against me. But what none of them realized was that I still had eyes and ears and a perfectly functioning memory. And I was about to uncover something that would flip the entire board. 3 weeks after the incident with the twins, I found the documents. I was not snooping. Or maybe I was. I do not even know anymore if I was looking for proof or just praying I was wrong. It was a Tuesday afternoon. Arthur had gone to the factory to oversee a massive order for a hotel chain. I was out watering the hydrangeas by the walkway when I noticed his study door cracked open. He never left it open. It was his sacred space, where he spent hours sketching designs, listening to Frank Sinatra, smoking the occasional cigar that I pretended not to smell. I only walked in to shut the window. It smelled like incoming rain. That was when I saw the thick manila folder on his desk. It had brightly colored sticky notes poking out of the edges. My name was written on one of them. My hands shook when I opened it. A professional appraisal of our property, dated 3 weeks ago. Updated market value, $1.3 million. There were photographs of every single room, from the backyard down to the tool shed. Someone had come into our house to appraise it while I was out, without telling me a thing. I kept flipping the pages. Financial projections, charts, investment calculations. Scenario A, full property sale, capital reinvested into machinery upgrades. Scenario B, partial sale, purchase of a luxury condo for the original owners. The original owners. As if Arthur and I were already ancient history, relics that needed to be relocated. But the worst part was at the very back. Business cards. 3 different ones. Real estate attorneys. One of them had a note scribbled in Arthur's handwriting. Tuesday, 11 in the morning. Second appointment. Second appointment. He had gone twice. Without telling me a word, I crumpled the paper in my hands. I felt something inside my chest snap clean in half, like a dry branch. I stood there, frozen, until I heard his truck pull into the driveway. When Arthur walked in, I was sitting in the living room with the folder on my lap. Mary. He stopped dead in his tracks. All the color drained from his face. I was going to. When? My voice came out much calmer than I felt. When were you going to tell me you are selling our house behind my back? I am not selling anything. I was just doing some research. Research? Researching with attorneys? With appraisers who walked through our home without my knowledge? He took off his baseball cap. He ran his hand through his gray hair. That telltale gesture he always made when he was nervous. Victoria had a point about something, he finally said. The words hit the floor like lead. This house is way too big for just the 2 of us. The stairs are wearing you out. The yard takes so much maintenance. And the company does need the investment, Mary. We cannot just ignore that. Victoria had a point? I stood up. The folder slipped to the floor, papers spilling everywhere. That woman who is pushing us out of everything we built, she is the one who has a point? She only wants what is best for the family. The best? Arthur, are you listening to yourself? She took our office. She erased us from family dinners. She told our grandchildren I was losing my mind. And you are taking her side. I am not taking her side. I am trying to be realistic. His voice rose in frustration. We are 70 years old, Mary. How much longer are we going to keep fighting? Are you not tired? Tired? Yes. I am tired. I am tired of my own family treating me like a burden. I am tired of my son avoiding me. I am tired of my husband considering selling the home where he promised to grow old with me. We are going to grow old together, just somewhere else. Somewhere more comfortable. Somewhere they picked out. A condo where I will not have a backyard, where I cannot smoke a brisket on the patio grill, where I will not be able to look at the plum tree we planted the day Benjamin was born. Arthur took a step closer. He tried to grab my hands. I pulled away. Mary, please. I am just tired of the fighting. Victoria is difficult, I know that. But she is our son's wife. And if we sell the house, they will back off. We can just live out our final years in peace. Final years? Is that how you see us now? As old people just waiting around to die? I did not say that, but you thought it. The tears started to fall, and I hated them. I hated crying. You promised me, Arthur. When we bought this dirt lot, when we laid the very first brick, you promised me this would be our forever home, that we would watch our grandchildren grow up right here, that we would pass away here, together, surrounded by everything we built. Plans change, the promises do not. The silence that followed was heavy. Arthur looked exhausted, defeated. He was no longer the man who fought for his dreams. He was an old man surrendering. "I just need you to think about it," he said quietly. "Just that. Think about it." The lawyers explained the whole process. "We can protect a chunk of the cash for ourselves and invest the rest. Everybody wins." "Except me," I whispered. "I lose my home." I did not wait for him to respond. I walked out to the backyard. It was March. The lavender was blooming, pale purple against the dark soil. The rose bushes I pruned back in January were already pushing out new buds. The grass smelled like fresh rain and damp earth, that specific scent that always brought me peace. 40 years. 40 years tending to this garden. This is where Benjamin took his first steps. This is where Emily lost her first tooth. She spit blood onto the petunias and giggled. This is where Jack buried his pet hamster in a shoebox when he was 8, crying his eyes out while Arthur said a few beautiful words. This is where we threw birthday parties. This is where my mother-in-law used to sit every Sunday shelling peas while she told me stories about Arthur as a little boy. This is where my own mother spent her final days, sitting under the ash tree, watching the clouds drift by. Every single plant held a memory. Every corner had a history. And Arthur wanted to sell it off like it was just a piece of real estate. Square footage, dollars sitting in a bank account. I sat down right in the middle of the lavender. The damp soil soaked through my pants. I did not care. 67 years old. I have been working since I was 15, married at 22, birthed 3 children, built a corporation, planted this garden with these very hands that were now shaking. And for what? So some manipulative woman in expensive designer heels could decide I did not matter anymore? So my son could erase me from his life? So my husband could consider selling off the last remaining shreds of my dignity? The sun was starting to set. The sky turned a brilliant orange and pink. The swallows were flying low, which meant more rain was coming. And I was out there, alone, in the garden that nobody but me took care of, feeling, for the absolute first time in my life, that maybe it really was time to throw in the towel. Maybe Victoria was right. Maybe I was just a burden clinging to dead things. But then, as the tears soaked into the dirt I loved so much, something shifted inside me. It was not anger. It was something colder, something calculated. Because if they were going to take everything from me, they were not going to do it easily. And if Arthur was having secret meetings with real estate attorneys, maybe it was time I started making a few phone calls of my own. Because one thing was absolutely certain. I was not going to let them bury me before I was actually dead. Arthur was still standing there with his ring in his hand. We were all staring at him as if he were a total stranger, as if the man we knew had been swapped out for someone harder, someone dangerous. "I do not recognize this family," he repeated, but this time he was looking dead at Benjamin. And I think it is time we all knew exactly why. Victoria found her voice first. She always did. "Father-in-law, I understand you are upset, but you are blowing this out of proportion. Mary is just overreacting." Silence. The word dropped like a boulder. Arthur never spoke to anyone like that. He was the most diplomatic man I had ever known. The guy who sought peace in every conflict. The one who would rather bite his tongue than hurt somebody's feelings. But that man was gone. "Benjamin," Arthur said, never taking his eyes off our son. "Did you see what your wife just did?" Benjamin shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "Dad, it was an accident. Victoria did not mean to." "An accident? Systematically destroying every single birthday gift your mother received is an accident?" Arthur took a step toward him. "Or that little chuckle you let out when your grandmother's watch shattered into 1,000,000 pieces. Was that an accident too?" Benjamin turned pale. "I did not. I was not laughing. It was just nerves. It was cowardice." Arthur cut him off. "It is the exact same thing it has been for the last 8 months. A coward who sits back and lets his wife tear his mother to shreds while you just look the other way." Emily choked back a sob. Jack had stood up, his muscles tense, ready for whatever was about to happen. Victoria tried to grab Benjamin's arm. "Sweetheart, you do not have to listen to this. Your dad is just worked up. Let us go." "Nobody is leaving," Arthur said, and his voice boomed. because this conversation should have happened months ago, and I, to my deepest shame, was a coward too. I let my wife suffer while I tried to figure out the right way to fix this mess. He looked at me then. His eyes were shining with unshed tears. "Forgive me, Mary. I had no idea what was happening. My heart was pounding so hard it physically hurt." "Arthur, I found the paperwork," I said. "It was not a question. The appraisals, the business cards from the lawyers, and I thought you were betraying me." The tears started spilling before I could stop them. "And I was not?" "No." He walked over to me, still gripping the ring. "Those meetings with the attorneys were not to sell our house, honey. They were to make absolutely certain that nobody could ever take it away from us." The world stopped spinning. "What?" Arthur pivoted back to face the family, specifically Victoria. 3 months ago, Victoria came to see me at the factory, alone, without Benjamin. She told me that if I did not convince Mary to sell the house, she would personally make it her mission to make our lives a living hell. His voice shook with barely contained rage. "She gave me 6 months. 6 months to convince my wife, or she would start destroying us in other ways." Victoria shook her head frantically. "That is a lie. I never. Do you want me to play the recording?" The silence in the room was deafening. "What recording?" Benjamin whispered. Arthur pulled his smartphone out of his pocket. He set it down on the coffee table. He pressed play. Victoria's voice filled the living room, crisp, cold, completely stripped of that fake, sugary tone she normally used. "Look, Arthur, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. It is your call. You convince Mary to sell that massive house you two do not even need. You pump that cash into modernizing a company that is rapidly falling behind, and everybody goes home happy. Or I will make sure your golden years are a total nightmare. I will start with the grandkids. I have already planted the seed that Mary is losing her marbles. I can get Emily to stop bringing them around entirely. I can get Benjamin to freeze your access to the corporate accounts. I can make you completely irrelevant in 6 months. It is your choice." Benjamin jumped to his feet. His face was a portrait of pure horror. "Victoria, what the hell is this?" "It is edited," she stammered. "He cut pieces together." "I did not say that. Not like that. I have the complete, unedited recording," Arthur said. 42 minutes. Every single threat. Every piece of manipulation. All of it. Victoria looked at Benjamin, desperate for a lifeline. But our son was looking at her as if she were a total stranger. Arthur pocketed his phone and kept going. When she threatened me, I decided to play her little game. I went to see real estate lawyers, yes, but not to sell. I went to set up an ironclad legal shield that neither she nor anyone else could ever break. He turned to me. "Mary, our home is now in an irrevocable trust. Only the two of us can live here, as long as we are alive. Nobody can force us to sell, not even if we go completely broke. The property can only pass down to our kids after we have both passed away, and only if they can legally prove they maintained it and visited us regularly during our final years." My breath caught in my throat. "The company is protected too," he continued. "I restructured the corporate entity. Everything your mother and I built is in a separate trust. The day-to-day management can pass to the kids. Yes, but the actual ownership cannot. And there are strict stipulations." He glared at Benjamin. "Stipulations that include verifiable respect toward the founders. An independent board evaluates every single year whether the executive team is acting in the best interest of the family or just lining their own pockets." "Dad," Benjamin had tears in his eyes, "I swear to you I did not know anything about what she said to you. You have to believe me. You did not know?" Arthur's voice was freezing cold. "Or you did not want to know? Because your wife spent months humiliating your mother right in front of you, and you just watched. You watched and you laughed. One time was all it took." Arthur slid his wedding ring back onto his finger, slowly, with deliberate intention. "When I took this ring off a minute ago, it was not to leave your mother. It was to ask myself if the family I wore this ring for even existed anymore, if the values we busted our backs to teach you actually meant a damn thing." He looked at the gold band on his finger. Then he looked at me. "Your mother spent weeks thinking I had stabbed her in the back, that I was thinking about selling her home out from under her to this." He paused, searching for the word. Snake. And I could not tell her the truth, because I needed Victoria to believe she was winning, to let her guard down, to get so confident that she would finally show everyone exactly who she is. Everything I did, every single thing, was to protect you, to protect us. I walked over to him, trembling. He took my hands. I am so sorry I kept you in the dark, but I needed airtight proof. I needed to know that when this moment finally came, nobody would be able to deny it. Victoria finally exploded. This is highly illegal. You cannot legally set up a trust without consulting the primary heirs. Benjamin is your son. He has legal rights. He has whatever rights I choose to give him, Arthur fired back with deadly calm. And right now, after watching him allow you to treat his mother like garbage, I am not convinced he deserves a single one of them. Benjamin collapsed back onto the couch. He buried his head in his hands. Emily rushed over to me. She threw her arms around me. Mom, I am so sorry. I should have done something. I should have fought for you. Jack came over too. Please forgive us. We were all just terrified of confronting her, but I could not tear my eyes away from Arthur, my husband, the man I was certain had abandoned me, who had actually been silently shielding me the entire time. Victoria glanced around the room. She realized she was entirely alone. Benjamin refused to look at her. Nobody was stepping up to defend her. This is not over, she snarled, though her voice wavered. I am going to sue. I am going to. You are going to do what? Exactly? Asked a voice from the foyer. We all snapped our heads around. It was my turn. Well, not exactly me, but the second phase of the plan nobody saw coming. Because it turns out that while Arthur was busy protecting our assets behind the scenes, I had been pretty busy myself, and what I was about to drop on them was going to vaporize the last shred of power Victoria thought she possessed. The voice did not belong to my friend Nancy. No, hold on, let me tell this right. Because while Arthur was secretly working with attorneys, I was doing my own homework. And it turns out that spending 40 years building a business teaches you how to read a balance sheet, how to spot when the math does not add up, and how to trust your gut when something smells rotten. The man standing in my entryway was not Nancy. It was a slender man with glasses carrying a worn-out leather briefcase. A forensic accountant I had hired 2 months ago, paying him out of my own personal checking account. His name was Gregory Hayes, and he was holding information that was about to change the game entirely. I apologize for the intrusion, Gregory said, stepping into the living room. Mrs. Miller asked me to come by today. She mentioned this would be the appropriate time to present my findings. Victoria stared at me like she was looking at a ghost. And in a way, she was. The ghost of the woman she was so certain she had destroyed. Mary? Arthur whispered. I could hear the surprise in his voice. But there was something else too. Pride. I stood up straight. My legs were shaking, but my voice came out rock solid. I need you to forgive me too, Arthur, for not trusting you when I found those papers. But I had my own reasons for keeping quiet. I locked eyes with Victoria, because while you thought I was just some clueless old lady clinging to her scrapbooks, I was doing exactly what I have always done, protecting what we built. Gregory unlatched his briefcase on the coffee table. He pulled out folders, thick ones. Mrs. Victoria Davis, he began in a crisp, professional tone. Over the last 18 months, you have actively embezzled funds from Miller Furniture, funneling them into your personal offshore accounts on 7 separate occasions. The total amount stolen currently sits at $85,000. Benjamin bolted upright. What? Gregory continued, totally unfazed. The funds were coded as corporate expenses, business trips to Maui, which were, in reality, personal luxury vacations. High-end office equipment that was never delivered to the facility. Retainers paid to shell consulting firms that turned out to be dummy accounts registered in your name. He pulled out bank statements, invoices, wire transfer receipts. Here is the Maui trip from last May. All-inclusive luxury resort, spa treatments, helicopter tours. It was invoiced as a modern furniture design symposium. There was no such symposium. He slid the document across the table to Benjamin. And here are the laptops that were supposedly purchased to upgrade the design department. 3 workstations billed at $3,000 apiece, but the invoices are from an LLC that does not legally exist. The cash was wired directly to this routing number. He pointed at a line, an account registered exclusively to Victoria Davis. Victoria was shaking her head violently. "That is fabricated. Somebody set me up." "Set you up?" Gregory arched an eyebrow. "Ma'am, these are official invoices containing your secure digital signature. Every wire transfer was authorized by your credentials. I pulled the raw data logs directly from the corporate servers. Time-stamped, date-stamped, and user-stamped. It is entirely traceable." Benjamin was holding the papers. He read them over and over, as if staring at the words would somehow change them. "Victoria, please tell me this is a lie." She said nothing. Her complexion had gone from pale to a sickly gray. I took the floor. 2 months ago, when I still had partial access to the building, I went in at dawn, not to stir up trouble, to run the books. Because my gut told me something was very wrong. I walked over to Benjamin. "You know I ran the accounting department for 30 years. I know exactly where every single dime comes from and where it goes." And there were discrepancies. Small ones at first, but they started snowballing. I asked Mr. Davis, the floor supervisor, to let me dig into the archived ledgers. I continued. "He still respects me. He actually remembers who built that factory. He gave me backdoor access to everything I needed." Emily covered her mouth. "Mom, is that why you were leaving the house so early some mornings? You told us you were just going out to watch the sunrise." I lied. And I am not ashamed to admit it, because I needed concrete proof before making an accusation. I was not going to do to her what she did to me. I was not going to destroy someone's life without hard evidence. I wanted facts. Gregory pulled out another stack of documents. We also uncovered some highly questionable activity in the human resources logs. Victoria personally hired 3 new employees over the last fiscal quarter. None of them possess any prior experience in the furniture manufacturing industry. All of them were brought in at heavily inflated salaries. He tapped the contracts. And all 3 are her direct relatives. A cousin, an uncle, and a guy from her college fraternity. "That is not illegal," Victoria muttered, but all the bite was gone from her voice. "No, it is not," Gregory agreed. "But blatant nepotism, combined with corporate embezzlement, paints an extremely clear picture for a judge. You were systematically converting a family-owned corporation into your own personal piggy bank." Benjamin dropped the papers onto the table. He looked absolutely gutted. "How long?" he asked me. "How long did you know?" 6 weeks, I answered honestly. "Since I retained Gregory, and he started the audit. 6 weeks of waking up every day wanting to scream in your face. But I could not, because I needed us to reach this exact moment, a moment where she could not spin a lie to get out of it, where every single one of you could see exactly who she is." I stepped closer to Victoria. I was not afraid of her anymore. "Did you really think that just because I stopped showing up to the office, I stopped caring? That just because I did not scream back when you insulted me, I was weak?" "I was never weak, Victoria. I was strategic. The last few months I spent taking your humiliation," I continued. "I was not playing the passive victim. I was playing the patient investigator. Every single family dinner you excluded me from, I was sitting right here auditing your files. Every time you tried to make me invisible, I used that invisibility to work without you noticing. I pulled out my own smartphone and set it on the table right next to Arthur's. I have my own recordings too. Not of you making threats, like Arthur's. Recordings of you on the phone with your family, laughing at us, calling Arthur a stubborn old fool, and calling me the witch who just will not die, planning exactly how you were going to kick us to the curb the second you gained full executive control." Victoria opened her mouth to speak, but shut it again. She had no defense left. Gregory closed his briefcase. "Mrs. Miller asked me to outline your legal options. I explained that the company can press felony charges for corporate embezzlement. You can file a civil suit for the stolen capital plus damages and interest. Or, if the board chooses, you can demand full restitution of the funds in exchange for not pursuing criminal charges." I looked at Benjamin. My son, the baby boy I rocked to sleep, the teenager who worked the floor with me when the business almost went under, the man who, somewhere along the line, forgot exactly who raised him. "The choice is yours, son. You can stay married to a thief and a manipulator if you want to. It is your life. But she is no longer a part of this company, and if you choose to protect her over your own blood, then neither are you." The words hung in the air like a judge's gavel. Victoria finally spoke, her voice tiny and cracked. "Benjamin, honey, please, can I explain?" Benjamin looked at her, and for the first time in 8 years, he truly saw her. He saw the woman who smashed his mother's birthday gifts for sport, who stole from his family's livelihood, who manipulated his niece and nephew, who blackmailed his father, who tried to evict his parents from their forever home. Something inside him shattered. But before he could even get a word out, Arthur delivered the final, fatal blow. "There is one more thing," my husband said, "and this one is going to sting." He pulled another document from his suit jacket, and when I saw what it was, even I, who thought I had uncovered every secret, had the wind knocked out of me. Because what Arthur was about to reveal was not just going to destroy Victoria, it was going to permanently alter how our family viewed the last 8 years of our lives. The document Arthur was holding was a thick private investigator's report, complete with photographs. "3 months ago," Arthur began, "when Victoria threatened me in my office, I hired a private investigator, not just to build a paper trail of what she was doing here, but to find out exactly who the hell she was." Victoria shot up from her chair. "You have no right to do that. I have every right when you threaten my family." Arthur's tone left zero room for debate, and what the investigator dug up was incredibly enlightening. He flipped open the dossier. There was an 8x10 photograph of a wedding. But the groom was not Benjamin. "Your legal name is not Victoria Davis," Arthur stated. "It is Victoria Davis Sterling. And before you married my son, you were married to a man named Richard Sterling, who owns a massive chain of hardware stores down in Dallas." You could hear a pin drop in the room. That marriage lasted exactly 3 years. During that time, you convinced Richard that his mother, a 72-year-old widow, desperately needed to be moved into a nursing facility. You forced the sale of her estate. You had the family trust restructured. And 6 months before the divorce papers were filed, Richard discovered you had skimmed $40,000 from the joint accounts. Benjamin looked as white as a sheet of paper. The divorce was handled privately, out of court, and completely swept under the rug. Because the Sterling family did not want the PR nightmare. Arthur flipped to the next page. But prior to that marriage, there was another one. To a guy named Alexander Brooks, a high-end architect up in Chicago. Wealthy family. The exact same playbook. You zeroed in on him, tied the knot, infiltrated the family firm, demanded sweeping modern changes, and systematically isolated the husband from his parents. "That is a lie," Victoria whispered. But nobody in that room believed a word she said anymore. That marriage imploded when Alexander's mother caught you forging her signature on commercial banking documents. That one was also settled quietly, with 0 criminal charges, in exchange for you disappearing into thin air. Arthur slammed the folder shut. He looked at Benjamin. "Your wife is a professional con artist, son. She hunts for men from affluent families, specifically targets established family businesses, slithers her way in, manipulates everyone, bleeds the accounts dry, and the second she gets caught or gets bored, she moves on to her next mark." Benjamin was physically incapable of speaking. Tears were streaming down his face. "We were just her next target," I chimed in, my voice trembling but holding strong. That is why she knew exactly where to strike. She had rehearsed this whole routine before. The snide comments about modernizing, the hints that we were in the way, the aggressive push to sell our house, none of it was improvised. It was a highly refined system. Victoria was shaking her head, slowly backing toward the front door. "Benjamin, please listen to me. Yes, I was married before, but it was completely different. Those men were abusive. I had to get out. 2 times?" Emily snapped, pure venom in her voice. 2 previous marriages where the exact same scenario played out? And we are the ones with the problem? Jack stepped up to Benjamin and put a heavy hand on his shoulder. "Brother, she played you." Benjamin completely broke down. He literally collapsed back onto the sofa, sobbing. That deep, guttural, agonizing weeping of a man who just realized his entire adult life had been an elaborate scam. Victoria tried to take a step toward him. "Sweetheart, please, just let me explain. Do not touch him." My voice came out sharper and harder than I even intended. Do not you ever lay a hand on my son again." I planted my feet firmly between her and Benjamin. This woman who had humiliated me in my own home, who had smashed my birthday gifts, who had tried to rip my house away from me, suddenly, she looked incredibly small, terrified. "Here is exactly what is going to happen," I said, every word meticulously calculated. "Heavy, final. You are going to pay back every single cent you stole. The full $85,000. You have exactly 30 days. I do not care if you have to beg your family for a loan. Hawk your designer jewelry. Pawn your luxury car. But every dime goes back into the company. Mary, I do not have that kind of 30 days, I repeated. Or we file federal charges for corporate embezzlement. And this time around, given your extensive track record and the mountain of forensic evidence we are holding, there will be no quiet, out-of-court settlement. You will face a judge. And trust me, we will make absolutely certain that every single one of your ex-husbands finds out you are being indicted. They might just want to join the civil suit." Victoria shuddered. "Second," I continued, "you will submit your formal resignation from Miller Furniture effective immediately. You will never set foot in that factory again. You will not contact a single employee. You will not touch a single corporate account. You are permanently out." Third, Arthur stepped up and grabbed my hand, showing a united front. "You stay the hell away from our grandchildren. You do not call them. You do not visit them. You do not plant any more of your sick lies in their heads. If Emily or Jack ever decide to let their kids see you, that is their prerogative. But you have zero right to go anywhere near them unsupervised. And fourth," I said, staring straight into those cold eyes that used to intimidate me so much, "whatever happens between you and Benjamin is strictly between you two. It is his marriage, his call. But you need to understand this very clearly. If you choose to stay, you will remain entirely cut off from everything we have built. No access to family money, no inheritance, no corporate authority. You will be our son's wife, and nothing more." The silence in the room was suffocating. Victoria scanned the faces around her, desperate for an ally. She found absolutely no one. Benjamin was still weeping into his hands. Emily stood tall right beside me. Jack stood with his arms crossed, waiting for her next move. And Arthur. My Arthur. He squeezed my hand and nodded. "You have 1 hour to decide," my husband told her. "You accept the terms, or we dial the police right now. Your call." Victoria looked at all of us. She searched our faces for any flicker of weakness, any drop of sympathy from the people she had masterfully manipulated for 2 years. She found nothing. Because we were no longer the clueless victims she thought she was controlling. She whispered to Benjamin one last time, "Please, tell them I am your wife. Tell them I deserve." Benjamin lifted his head. His eyes were bloodshot and swollen, but there was something brand new shining in them. Complete clarity. "You do not deserve a damn thing," he said, his voice cracking. "Less than nothing, because you never even loved me, did you? I was just another job, just another family to rob blind." Victoria opened her mouth. She snapped it shut. And in that hollow silence, Benjamin found his answer. He stood up, slowly, like every muscle in his body ached. "You have 1 week to get all of your garbage out of my house," he told her. "Then I am changing the locks, and I am filing for divorce." Victoria recoiled as if he had physically slapped her. "No, Benjamin, you cannot." 1 week, he repeated. "And you are going to accept my parents' terms. Pay the money back. Sign whatever documents you have to sign, because if you do not, I will personally make sure you rot in a cell for every single dollar you stole." He looked at Arthur. "Dad, do you have that criminal defense attorney's card?" "I do. Give it to me. Because if she misses a single deadline, I am pressing charges myself. I do not care if she was my wife. She robbed my family. For the first time in 2 years, I watched my son step up and act like the man we raised him to be." Victoria stared at us one last time. She saw her total, inescapable defeat. "I am going to sue you all," she spat, though her voice shook violently. "This is harassment. It is." "Go right ahead," I said calmly. "File the lawsuit. And during the legal discovery process, all of this goes on public record. Your real name, your previous marriages, the documented wire fraud. Do you really think that is going to play out in your favor? Victoria snatched her designer purse. She marched toward the front door with whatever microscopic shred of dignity she had left. She paused in the doorway. She looked back over her shoulder. One day, you will all realize, she sneered, an ugly venom in her voice. I only wanted what was best for this family. I was trying to modernize you, pull you out of your small-town backwards mentality, but you all just preferred to stay stuck in the past. No, I replied, my voice perfectly steady. You wanted to rob us. There is a massive difference. And if you truly believe that stealing from people is modernizing them, then you never had the slightest clue what a family actually is. Victoria walked out and slammed the door behind her. And with that resounding crash, the entire atmosphere in the house shifted. It felt as if the air had instantly become cleaner, easier to breathe. Benjamin collapsed again, but this time Emily and Jack were right there to catch him. I am so sorry, Mom, he sobbed. Forgive me for everything, for not seeing it, for not defending you, for being so incredibly stupid. I knelt down on the hardwood floor in front of him. I took his face in both of my hands. It is over now. It is done. I destroyed everything. I let her hurt you. I let her steal from us. You did not destroy anything. We are still right here. We are still a family. I wiped the tears from his cheeks, and this, as excruciating as it is, finally made you open your eyes. It woke you up. That is the only thing that matters. Arthur knelt down right beside me. He rested his hand on the back of Benjamin's head, just like he used to do when our son was a little boy. We all make mistakes, son. Even me. I let it get this far, because I simply did not want to believe that any human being could be that cold and calculating. But it is over. The twins, who had been hiding back in the guest room with Sarah, crept out into the hallway. Grandma? Leo squeaked. Did the bad aunt leave? The bad aunt. That is what they called her now. Yes, my sweet boy. She is gone. Maya ran straight into my arms. Is she ever going to come back and say you are sick again? No, sweetheart. She is never coming back. We all stayed together that night. We ordered takeout. We carefully swept up the shattered pieces of my mother's pocket watch, knowing some of the gears were broken beyond repair. But Jack, with those incredibly skilled hands he inherited from his father, promised he would do his absolute best to fix it. Emily brewed a fresh pot of coffee for everyone. Jack salvaged the photographs that survived the torn scrapbook. Sarah helped me sweep up the broken glass ornaments. And Benjamin, my eldest boy, just sat next to me on the couch in total silence. He did not say a word. He just rested his head on my shoulder, exactly like he used to do whenever he had a bad nightmare as a child. I am still right here, I whispered into his hair. I am always going to be right here. Arthur caught my eye from across the living room. He smiled. It was a tired smile, but a deeply genuine one, and I knew it then. We had won, not by screaming, not with violence, with sheer patience, with careful strategy, with that quiet, unshakable strength that only comes from knowing exactly who you are and absolutely refusing to let anyone erase you. But the story did not end there, because what happened in the weeks that followed truly defined exactly who we were as a family, and sometimes the aftermath is far more important than the victory itself. It has been 6 months since that fateful birthday. 6 months in which our family has had to relearn how to be a family. It was not easy. Do not let anyone tell you that peace automatically follows justice. Peace is something you have to actively build, day in and day out, the exact same way we built the factory. Brick by brick, conversation by conversation. Victoria paid the money back. It took her 45 days, not 30, but she returned every cent. She realized we were not bluffing. I suspect her family bailed her out, though we never bothered to ask. By day 50, she was completely and totally out of our lives. The divorce was finalized 3 weeks ago. Benjamin did not fight her on a single thing. And she did not demand a dime, knowing full well that any courtroom battle would drag her entire scam into the public spotlight. She walked away exactly the way she arrived, empty-handed, on the prowl for her next target. I just hope she finds one. And I hope to God her next victim is sharper than we were. Benjamin, my son. That has been the most painful and beautiful transformation to witness. During the first few weeks after Victoria packed her bags, he moved back into his childhood bedroom in our house. Just temporarily, he told us. Just until I get my head screwed on straight, Mom. But I could see something far deeper than confusion in his eyes. It was pure shame, crushing guilt, the heavy burden of realizing exactly how much damage he had facilitated. One night, I found him out in the backyard, sitting in the exact same spot I used to sit and cry months ago, right in the middle of the lavender bushes that were now blooming brighter than ever. I sat down next to him. I did not say a word. I was just there. How did I not see it? He finally asked. He sounded like a lost little boy. Mom, how could I have been so blind? Because she was a professional at what she did, I answered honestly. And because when you love someone, or think you do, you desperately want to believe the absolute best about them. But I let her hurt you. I pushed you guys away for her. Yes, I said, because I was never going to lie to him. You hurt me, deeply, but you are sitting right here now. Your eyes are open, and you are learning. And that is what matters most. He sobbed that night. And I held him the same way I did when he was 7 years old and fell out of the plum tree and broke his arm. Benjamin is in therapy now. He goes twice a week. He says he needs to unpack how he let himself get to that dark place, how he completely lost his moral compass, and he is putting in the work. He is rebuilding himself. He is also working back at the company, but it is different now. He is no longer walking around like the hotshot executive who knows everything. He is acting like the apprentice who needs to relearn the ropes. Arthur is reteaching him all the core values he lost sight of. Basic respect, deep humility, the reality that true work is done with your hands and your heart, not just your head and a spreadsheet. Emily has absolutely blossomed. Without Victoria constantly dropping poison at every family gathering, my daughter got her radiant smile back. She brings the twins over every Thursday, just like the old days. Sometimes she even stays until Friday night. We bake together. The kids run wild in the backyard. Leo and Maya are not terrified of me anymore. They help me water the garden, getting the knees of their jeans completely caked in mud. Grandma, Maya asked me last week, while we were planting bright red geraniums, is it true that Aunt Victoria was a wicked witch, like in the fairy tales? She was not a witch, I explained gently. She was just a very broken person who liked to hurt other people. That is a different thing entirely. So why did you forgive her? Because forgiveness is not for the other person, my sweet girl. It is for us. So we do not have to carry around a heavy backpack full of anger for the rest of our lives. But the stark truth that I did not tell little Maya is that forgiving someone does not mean you forget. It means you make a conscious choice not to let their damage define who you are. Jack and Sarah got engaged 2 months ago. They are getting married next summer, right here in the backyard, under the giant ash tree where my mother-in-law used to rest, where my own mother spent her peaceful final days. Sarah came to me one afternoon to ask for my blessing. Not to marry Jack, I already knew that was happening. It was for something else. Mrs. Miller, she said nervously, wringing her hands together, I really want to learn from you. How did you manage the company's books for so many years? How did you raise 3 amazing kids? How did I survive all of this without completely shattering? She made me cry. Good tears. I did not survive without shattering, I told her with total honesty. I broke into 1,000 pieces 100 different times, but I glued myself back together 101 times. That is the only thing that actually counts. So now Sarah comes over every Tuesday. We sit at the kitchen table and go over the corporate ledgers together. I am teaching her everything I know. Not because she is going to work for the company, she is still studying to be a vet, and her passion lies elsewhere. But because every single woman on earth needs to know exactly how to defend herself, financially, emotionally, in every possible way. The company is stronger than it has ever been. With Victoria gone, with Benjamin relearning the ropes, with Emily managing the finances, and Jack injecting brilliant new design concepts, we have finally returned to our roots. We are a family that builds things together, not one that fights over a throne. We hired 3 new employees, honest, hard-working locals, highly recommended by Mr. Davis. We even launched a training initiative for at-risk youth who want to learn the carpentry trade. We named it after my mother, the Eleanor Miller Workshop, because her watch may have been broken, but her legacy never will be. And Arthur, my wonderful Arthur. That evening, after the dust finally settled, when we were alone in our bedroom, he wrapped his arms around me tight. "I am so sorry I did not tell you about my plan," he whispered into my hair. "I just wanted to keep you safe." "And what do you think I was doing?" I replied. "Why do you think I hired my own investigator?" "Because we are a team, Arthur. We always have been." "We are way more than a team," he said, pulling back to look me in the eyes. "We are two stubborn old fools who, after 45 years, will still fight like hell for the things we love." He kissed me then, exactly the way he did when we were 20 years old and the whole world felt brand new. And in that moment, I realized that Victoria never stood a chance against us. Not against a love forged in 4 decades of backbreaking work, tears, deep belly laughs, and promises kept. A few weeks ago, we celebrated my 68th birthday. Everyone came over. We cooked out on the patio. Nothing fancy, just family. Barbecue pulled pork, baked beans, macaroni and cheese, fresh rolls from Joe's bakery. This time around, the presents were simple. A beautiful sweater Emily knit for me, a stunning, hand-carved wooden picture frame Jack made, a brand new scrapbook the twins decorated with crayons and glitter stickers, and Benjamin. My eldest son handed me a plain envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter, 3 pages long, begging for my forgiveness, acknowledging every single mistake he made, promising to spend the rest of his life proving he is worthy of the unconditional love we gave him. "I do not need a letter," I told him, but I tucked it close to my heart anyway. "Yes, you do," he replied, "because I need it documented. So that when you get really, really old, and maybe you do start forgetting things, you will have this. So you can read it and remember that your son finally woke up, that your boy came back home." We cried together, and when I blew out the candles on my cake, with everyone singing and the twins cheering at the top of their lungs, I made a silent wish. I wished that we would never, ever have to learn these brutal lessons the hard way again. And so, here I am, sitting in my garden. It is a lazy Sunday afternoon. Arthur is out in his workshop putting the finishing touches on a custom desk. Benjamin is right there beside him, relearning the ancient secrets of the wood that his father knows so well. Emily is inside with the twins, teaching them how to bake cookies from scratch. Jack and Sarah arrived a little while ago with a massive bouquet of fresh flowers. My lavender bushes are taller than they have ever been. The rose bushes are covered in buds that are just about to burst open. The lawn is lush and green, soaked by last night's rainstorm. And I am finally at peace. Not because everything is flawless. There are still days when Benjamin looks haunted by regret. Days when Arthur gets tired a little faster than he used to. Days when I sit and wonder what new battles might be waiting around the corner for us. But I learned something absolutely vital over these last few months. True strength is not about never falling down. True strength is about getting back up every single time you are pushed. It is about utterly refusing to fade away into the background. It is about protecting what you built with every ounce of fight you have left in your bones. Victoria thought that getting older made us weak. She thought our history made us foolish. She thought our deep family bonds made us easy targets. She was wrong on every single count. Our age made us incredibly wise. Our history gave us roots so deep that no storm could ever rip them out. And our family's love, the real kind, the kind that gets tested in the fire, is the most indestructible force on earth. Because you can strip a person of a lot of things. But there is one thing nobody can ever steal: the quiet, terrifying dignity of a woman who refuses to be erased. And I, Mary Miller, 68 years old, with calloused hands and a heart full of scars that morphed into armor, am still standing right here, in my house, in my garden, surrounded by the family I nearly lost but fought like hell to get back, still standing tall. If my story touched your heart, if you have ever felt completely invisible inside your own family, if you have ever had to fight tooth and nail for your rightful place in this world, please leave a comment down below. Tell me where you are listening from. Tell me if you, too, had to learn how to refuse to disappear. Hit that like button if you believe that getting older does not make us weak, it makes us wise. And please subscribe to the channel to keep listening to stories of strong women who refuse to be erased. Because every single one of us deserves to be seen. We all deserve to be respected. And we all deserve the fundamental right to grow old with dignity, inside the very places we built with our own 2 hands and our boundless love. True wealth is not measured by the things you own, but by the things you absolutely refuse to let anyone take away from you. Your home, your dignity, and your God-given right to be exactly who you have always been.